Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Welcome to the building here at Plymouth United Church, or welcome to our YouTube channel at Plymouth United Church. We're glad to celebrate this Palm Sunday with you. Such a joyous occasion with all of our decorations and such. Really happy that you are joining us today. Let's see, next week is Easter Sunday, and we have our Easter egg hunt that's going to be sensory friendly and accessible. So please come to that. Looking forward to that. And then after that is Holy Humor Sunday, April 24th. So don't forget to send in your jokes. Mark needs more jokes. Videotape yourself telling a joke and then text it or email it to Mark, and then we can fill the service with just funny, crazy stuff. I, however, and this is going to be my first Holy Humor Sunday that I am missing. Carol Zarnowski's Celebration of Life is in California, so I'm going to help officiate that, and I'll be gone for Holy Humor Sunday and for about a week and a half. And then on March 1st, Marcia Baker is going to be our speaker. I'll be here, but doing prayers and, pastory kind of things. But Marcia is going to be our speaker, which is our first week of Mental Health Month. So that's pretty exciting. And let's see, anything else? No, just glad to be here on this Sunday morning and glad to be able to offer you this moment to bring ourselves fully to this time and to this place. This is a day of celebration, a day when we remember cheers and songs. Also a day when we remember Jesus getting a little radical because of his passion for the house of God. There was so much in him that day. Probably lots of things that we might think of as conflicting thoughts and emotions, ways of being in this world, much like we all have. So as we seek to ground ourselves this morning into this now, feel yourself in your body, plant your feet or some part of you on something that is also touching the earth, since we are not touching the earth directly. And feel the life that this created environment gives us, that we have been offered, that we can tap into. And that we can also take how our body is feeling and engage it with this very creation that we're a part of. Our conflicting selves are a part of this whole world, and we don't need to be confused that it's all racing at us all at once. Even if it's a bit too much and we need to take time like this to go, okay, that's a bit too much. Or, I absolutely love it and I want more and I want to figure out how. Wherever you are in that state physically, just know that you're there. As we move to our thoughts and what we're thinking about, and knowing all the complexities of our thoughts and the celebrations and the griefs, the triumphs and the troubles, trying to figure things out. Breathe into those thoughts. Let them tap into all of the beauty of creation and all of the rest of creation, really. Let your thoughts celebrate and figure stuff out. Tapping into the essence of who you are right now, not being worried about the right and the wrong. And breathe in with your emotions. Are you worried? Are you anxious? Are you joyous and excited? E, all of the above. Breathe in this big, beautiful creation. And just like Jesus on that Palm Sunday probably had every single emotion you could imagine, we can have every single emotion we can imagine and not burst. But we don't have to experience them all to the fullest every single moment. Just like we don't have to do that with our bodies or our minds. Let the wafting of who you are go through you. Be fully present to yourself and know that you are created in an amazing way. And the fact that we can have all these ways of being is a gift to us. So let's kind of breathe into the sensory overload, to calm it down, to be present, and to find our spirit, that spiritual part of us that connects directly with God's self and with each other. That part of us that might be riotous, that might be relaxed, that might be a little bit of everything again. Our spirit might be like the wind that blows from one end to the other. Might be like the way the wind picks up the leaves and makes them go in circles. Or maybe in this moment we can calm it down and feel the gentle breeze that wicks off the heat. Breathe into yourself. Breathe into this day that is so full, that is so engaging because of the events, all the events that happened. And know that you can be engaged in all of your events. You really can make it through. You really do have the right to rejoice and to be happy and to figure stuff out. For all of who we are in every way that we are, let us bring ourselves fully to this time and to this place.
Please join me in the responsive call to worship. In hope, we raise our branches high.
Eager for a healing touch, a blessing received.
In joy, we raise our branches high.
Longing for a message of welcome and acceptance.
In wonder, we lay our branches down.
Feeling for the Lord completely, we watch and wait.
In prayer, we believe the promises of God.
Today we celebrate. That celebration gives us strength.
Please join us as we sing together number 213, Hosanna, Loud Hosanna, from the New Century Hymnal, which you can find under your seat. The biblical witness this morning is taken from the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 21, verses 1 through 11. When they had come near Jerusalem and had reached Bethphage at the Mount of Olives, Jesus sent 2 disciples, saying to them, "Go into the village ahead of you, and immediately you will find a donkey tied and a colt with her. Untie them and bring them to me. If anyone says anything to you, just say this: 'The Lord needs them,' and he will send them immediately." This took place to fulfill what had been spoken through the prophet, saying, "Tell the daughter of Zion, look, your king is coming to you, humble and mounted on a donkey, and on a colt, the foal of a donkey." The disciples went and did as Jesus directed them. They brought the donkey and the colt and put their cloaks on them, and he sat on them. A very large crowd spread their cloaks on the road, and others cut branches from the trees and spread them on the road. The crowds that went ahead of him and that followed were shouting, "Hosanna to the Son of David! Blessed is the one who comes in the name of the Lord! Hosanna in the highest heaven!" When he entered Jerusalem, the whole city was in turmoil, asking, "Who is this?" The crowds were saying, "This is the prophet Jesus from Nazareth in Galilee."
Our second reading this morning is a continuation of that same story. Then Jesus entered the temple and drove out all who were selling and buying in the temple, and he overturned the tables of the money changers and the seats of those who sold doves. Jesus said to them, "It is written, 'My house shall be called a house of prayer,' but you're making it a den of robbers." The blind and the lame came to him in the temple, and he cured them. But when the chief priests and the scribes saw the amazing things that he did and heard the children crying out in the temple, "Hosanna to the Son of David," they became angry and said to him, "Do you hear what these are saying?" And Jesus said to them, "Yes. Have you never read, 'Out of the mouths of infants and nursing babies you have prepared praise for yourself'?" And Jesus left them, went out of the city to Bethany, and spent the night there. And that's how the story in Matthew is concluded about Palm Sunday, or what we call Palm Sunday. So, as you probably know, there was this parade going on, right? It was a parade of military power to make sure the Jewish people in Jerusalem, those who lived there and those who had sojourned there, made their pilgrimage for the celebration of the Passover, to make sure they stayed in line and didn't revolt against their subjugation to Rome. And as you likely know, the smaller parade that we read about that Jesus led, riding on a donkey, surrounded by cheering children as well as adults, was a protest against that military show of power. There was more to that day, though. After Jesus comes through that lesser gate of Jerusalem, the back door of the city, if you will, and he's riding on a much lesser steed than Pilate, a donkey, versus this powerful military war horse with all of its regalia. After all that, he enters the temple, and he thrashes it. He makes an utter and complete mess of everything. He's angry because instead of the temple being filled with prayers, it's become a place of commerce for the rich and power grabbing for the elite. Jesus didn't just get angry and trash the place, though. That's not like Jesus, just to make a mess and walk off and say, "Okay, I've made my point and I'm done with you." No, after it was all over, then it says people came to him so that they could interact with him. He didn't drive out the robbers, as he called them, just to make a statement. He came to make room for the people who needed to be in the temple for the sake of interaction, for the sake of being with each other and being in the temple, for that place of prayer that Jesus said, this is what this place is supposed to be called. This is what's supposed to be happening here. And he made room so that that could happen. Those who were least likely to be allowed in the temple or to be accepted if they got in came to Jesus, and he did what he could for them. His goal wasn't just to make a spectacle. The power of God and the house of God was and is meant for those who desire to be a part of community and to experience holy love and presence. It's never to be reduced to a seat of power where people are silenced or minimized in order to recognize that power and to be put in their place. Never, ever should a place that is considered a holy place be only there to be like, okay, if I'm not good enough, I can't walk in. It should always be beckoning, welcoming, grace-filled, and loving. It's never to be reduced to a seat of power where people are silenced or minimized in order to recognize somebody greater than them that's going to intimidate them. This story is in all 4 gospel accounts. Matthew, Mark, and Luke all position it when Jesus is making the protest parade through the lesser gate of Jerusalem. John, interestingly, makes it Jesus' first public act as a leader. It comes just after he turns water into wine at the behest of his mom, which was more of a private party, so not a public thing that he was doing. So I guess once Mary was like, come on, Jesus, I really want you to do this, he was like, well, the whole thing's kicked off. I may as well begin. I don't know. And so he goes in and he makes room for the people that, in another place, he said, I have come to bring good news to those who need it. In this account, he just brings the good news. There aren't many stories that make it into all 4 Gospels. So why is this one so important that all the writers put it in? I think it's because it shows Jesus' heart as a leader. The temple building is symbolic of God's presence. It's where you go to meet God, to perform rituals, to pray, to gather for celebrations. Jesus drives out those who are exploiting the poor, and then he offers direct access to those who were spurned and mistreated, and he personally attends to them. This foreshadows something that's about to happen on Good Friday. According to the Synoptic Gospels, which is the writings of Matthew, Mark, and Luke, the ones where Jesus put the cleansing of the temple on the day of the parade, when Jesus dies, that curtain that separates the holy place from the Holy of Holies is ripped in 2, allowing access to the place which held the very presence of God. Now, that's not what they were on this Palm Sunday. That happens later, and that's deeper in the temple. It's like it goes from one degree of access to another to another. This Holy of Holies was the place that God had instructed to be created to reside in when the temple was being designed. Way, way back. You can read about it in Exodus and other places. Just like the bread and the cup, though, that we have for communion, which we understand to be symbolic and not literal, this Holy of Holies section of the temple was symbolic as God's apartment, not literal. Because how could God, in all God's godness, be contained? It's similar to this building, this place that we call church. Do we say, I'm going to church? And people kind of assume, well, that means I'm going to the building. Or it might mean I'm going to the online service. I'm going to this designated spot where we're having this thing called church. It's our gathering place, our praying place. And because of our activities here, the essence of God feels stronger here for a lot of people, myself included. As a kid, for as long as I can remember, whenever I felt like I needed a safe place to be, luckily, I grew up in a church that treated me well, and I was able to go sit down in whether it was the sanctuary or the church basement, or a friend of mine and myself, I played clarinet and she played piano, and we would borrow the church piano and they would let us practice. That was our safe space. It was also one of the only tuned pianos that we could find. Which was really cool to be able to do that. But this isn't a place where we hold God captive. This isn't a place where we contain the experience of God, the presence of God, the isness of God. we should never insist that God is more here than anywhere else, let alone exclusively here. It's a place where we might be able to focus better. A place where the years of prayers and rituals and baptisms and confirmations and weddings and funerals and so many other meaningful events help to guide us toward the essence of the presence of holy love. I remember when I come to this building, or I look at the pictures of this building, or I experience the service online, because I know this place has history and memory and meaning, and I can find my way back to God when I come here. When Jesus decried the habits of those in the temple, it was in order to let the vulnerable have access to a place that was supposed to be set aside for prayer, for contact with God and the community of faith. He was making room and creating a safer space for them by removing those who for so many years had taken advantage of them by treating their prayers as financial exchange with God rather than a spirit-to-spirit engagement, which is what it is. The day Jesus was the grand marshal of the counter-protest of the military power pilot, he also protested the religious elite's exclusive approach to who had access to the place of prayer and who didn't. But he didn't stop at the protest. He made the room and he welcomed others in. This is what we celebrate today. Inclusion. Welcome. Centering those who have been dismissed and marginalized. We celebrate the protest, too. The cheering children who feel like their voice finally matters. The adults who add their energies to the song and reach for the palm branches to wave in support. God is not held captive to the whims of a few powerful people. Today, we celebrate by remembering that there is room enough for all of us who want to pray, for all of us who want to love, to march in the parade, and to bind our hearts together in this call for human dignity, the one that Jesus led so very long ago. So with that, my friends, happy Palm Sunday. Know there is room for you. That really is one of my most favorite songs in the whole wide world. I love that song. We're going to do the next piece in our Lenten ritual, and as I was listening to the song, I had an idea, and I'm going to do it a little bit differently. I don't think it should mess up the AV people at all. But I'm wondering if somebody would go into the kitchen and get one of these little cups out of the cupboard. Okay, Tara will do it. Thanks. And I'm just going to meander over here to the table, taking my time, da-da-da-da-da, while the cup comes to me. Thank you, Marshall. Does anybody have any last gifts to offer the shredder? any griefs, any joys, any dreams that you want to add to the little one? Okay, we're all set. If you do, come on up. Come on up and put it through the shredder. And if I get some more in the email, then I'll happily add them. Yes. Thank you very much. Yeah, you can just pray over an empty piece of paper if you want, too. Got paper up here. So today we baptize these papers. And like I said, they're going to soak for a little bit.